What if everything you've been told about productivity is completely wrong? You've tried the calendars. You've tried the time blocks. You've tried waking up at 5 a.m., color coding your schedule, downloading every app, and reading every top 10 productivity hacks article on the internet. And yet, you still feel behind. You still feel like you're spinning your wheels, working hard, but not getting to the things that actually matter. Here's the painful truth that nobody wants to say out loud. And I don't mean that as an insult. I mean it as the most liberating thing I've ever realized. Because once you stop trying to manage your time and start managing your mind, everything changes. Today we're going deep into one of the most underrated productivity books of the last decade. Mind Management, Not Time Management by David Kadavy. This is a book that completely reframes what it means to be productive, creative, and deeply effective at the work that matters most to you. And by the end of this video, I promise you, you're going to look at your to-do list very, very differently. Let's get into it. You don't have a time problem, you have a mind problem. Before we dive in, let me tell you exactly what you're going to get out of the next 30-ish minutes. First, we're going to talk about why time management fails most creative people. Kadavy makes a case that's so logical, so backed by science that you'll wonder why nobody said it sooner. Second, we'll break down his creative curve concept, which explains why you can't just schedule creative thinking like you schedule a dentist appointment. Third, I'm going to walk you through what Kadavy calls the 4 energies. This is the heart of the entire book, and it's the most practical, immediately useful framework I've ever come across for structuring your day. Fourth, we'll look at real-world examples of how this works in practice. Writers, entrepreneurs, musicians, designers, how do real people use this? And fifth, I'll give you a step-by-step action plan you can actually implement starting tomorrow morning. This is going to be educational. This is going to be practical, and honestly, it's going to be a little bit uncomfortable because it challenges everything we think we know about hard work and hustle. David Kadavy is a designer, author, and podcaster. He spent years studying creativity, the brain, and what actually makes people produce the best work. This book is the result of all of that research. And it's packed with insights that I wish I'd had years ago. Alright, let's start at the very beginning. Okay, let's start with the big idea. And it begins with a question Kadavy asks early in the book. Why do your best ideas come in the shower? Think about it. You're not in front of your laptop. You're not in your most productive environment. You haven't had a third cup of coffee. You're just standing under warm water, and suddenly, bam, the solution to the problem you've been stuck on for 3 days just appears out of nowhere. Why does that happen? The answer has everything to do with something Kadavy calls the creative curve. But to understand it, we first need to understand how the brain actually operates. Here's what neuroscience tells us. Your brain doesn't run at a constant level of performance throughout the day. It fluctuates constantly. Your ability to focus, to generate new ideas, to do deep, analytical thinking, to handle boring administrative tasks, all of these things peak and trough at different times. Think of it like the ocean. There are high tides and low tides. And just like you wouldn't try to surf during low tide, you shouldn't try to do your most demanding creative work when your brain is at low tide. Let me give you a real historical example that Kadavy references. Mozart. Most people picture Mozart composing furiously all day, every day, a genius machine cranking out symphonies. But his letters and journals tell a different story. Mozart actually composed in very short, intense bursts. He would wake up early, compose for a few hours at peak mental energy, and then spend the rest of the day socializing, playing billiards, and doing completely mindless things. Was he lazy? Absolutely not. He was instinctively managing his creative curve. He knew without any neuroscience to back it up, that the best music came from a specific mental state, and he protected that state fiercely. The lesson quantity of hours isn't the point. Quality of mental state is the point. You can sit at your desk for 12 hours and produce garbage. Or you can work for 3 focused hours at peak mental energy and create something extraordinary. The clock doesn't care. Your brain does. Now, here's where this gets really interesting, and this is something I had to sit with for a while before it clicked. Kadavy argues that creativity isn't just about the moments when you're actively sitting at your desk working. A huge part of the creative process happens below the surface of conscious thought in what he calls the incubation phase. This is the shower moment. When you step away from the problem, your subconscious mind keeps working on it. The shower, the walk, the mindless drive, these aren't wasted time. They're part of the creative process. They're when the brain makes connections that it can't make when it's consciously focused. So, what does this mean for how you should structure your day? It means rest isn't the enemy of productivity. It's a requirement. It means the hours you spend doing absolutely nothing might be the most important hours of your creative life. And it means that if you fill every single minute with tasks, emails, meetings, and notifications, you're actually starving your brain of the incubation time it desperately needs to produce great work. This is not permission to be lazy. This is a call to be strategic. There is a massive difference. The 4 energies. Okay, this is the part of the book I want you to really pay attention to because this is where Kadavy's thinking becomes immediately practically actionable. He introduces a framework he calls the 4 energies. The idea is that your mental and creative energy isn't just on or off. It exists in 4 distinct states. And each state is suited to a very specific type of work. Once you understand these 4 energies, you can start intentionally matching your tasks to your mental state rather than just grinding through your to-do list in whatever order feels right or feels urgent. Let's go through each one. Energy 1. Generate. This is the rarest, most precious energy state. When you're in generate mode, your mind is at its absolute sharpest. You're firing on all cylinders. You can hold complex problems in your head, make bold creative leaps, connect ideas from completely different domains. This is the state where great first drafts get written, where breakthrough strategies get conceived, where the truly original ideas are born. And here's the critical thing. This state doesn't last long. For most people, they get maybe 1 to 4 hours of genuine generate energy per day. And it typically shows up in the morning after sleep has restored the brain. The absolute worst thing you can do with generate energy: waste it on email, waste it on Slack, waste it on scrolling through social media or sitting in a meeting you didn't need to be in. If you do nothing else after watching this video, protect your generate hours. Guard them like your life depends on it because your creative life actually does. Energy 2. Prioritize. After generate energy fades, most people transition into what Kadavy calls prioritize energy. You're still sharp, still focused, but the raw creative spark has dimmed a little. This is the energy state for strategic thinking, for looking at your plans and asking, Is this actually the right thing to be working on? For making decisions about where to invest your time and resources over the coming days and weeks. Prioritize energy is also great for things like reviewing your work, editing and refining, and having important strategic conversations. It's important to distinguish prioritize from generate. In generate mode, you're creating something new. In prioritize mode, you're evaluating, organizing, and deciding. Most high performers instinctively do this after their morning creative sessions. They'll write or design for a few hours, then shift into strategic review and planning. Think of explore as filling the tank. You're not creating output. You're taking in input that will eventually become creative fuel. Energy 4. Recharge. The fourth energy is the one we feel most guilty about and the one we most desperately need. Recharge. Recharge energy is low energy, low demand, genuinely restorative time. It's a walk with no destination. It's a nap. It's watching something mindless. It's cooking a simple meal or taking that shower where the ideas mysteriously appear. Kadavy is emphatic about this. Recharge is not wasted time. It is not laziness. It is a non-negotiable biological requirement for creative output. When you skip recharge, when you push through fatigue, skip sleep, grind through weekends, you're borrowing from tomorrow's generate energy. You're taking out a loan you're eventually going to have to repay with interest. The most productive creatives in history didn't just work hard, they rested hard. They protected the downtime with the same intensity they brought to their work. So there you have it, the four energies. Generate, prioritize, explore, recharge. And here's the magic. Your entire day, your entire week, your entire year can be organized around these four states. When you know which energy you're in right now, you know exactly what type of work to do. And when you match the right work to the right energy, your output skyrockets, not because you worked more hours, but because you worked in alignment with your own biology. Let's look at how this plays out in the life of one of the most prolific